Happy New Year, horror fans, and welcome to another episode of the Jony Horror Podcast. I am your host, Jony Horror, here to introduce our latest episode in which Kalen and I sit down and discuss M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening. Yeah, so if any of you are excited about us bashing M. Night Shyamalan, then buckle up because you got about a solid 2 hours of that. Get comfy, have a couple of shots of booze, tequila, whiskey, what have you, and tune in. Hope you guys enjoy. Welcome back to the Jony Horror Podcast and a very, very happy new year. We are recording this on January 1st, 2025. Holy shit. Kalen, how long have we been friends now?
Gosh, about
Almost
15 years, right?
Almost, yeah. I think this is,
getting there.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that ballpark.
We were definitely friends by 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's on the back half, but yeah, we're
probably, but yeah, we definitely were.
We're getting there. Well, Happy New Year, buddy. I'm happy to be chatting with you here on this January of the 1st. And we are back to continue our Shyamalan marathon, baby. And I really do believe out of all the films that we have knocked out so far, we've finally come to our very first official ditch in the road. But I think I'm putting the cart before the horse in that regard. We are talking about 2008's The Happening this evening. And oh boy, I really cannot wait to discuss. I can say for my part, at the very least, when I put this film on today, I did it very begrudgingly. I was not looking forward to watching this at all. And I must say there was a little bit of insult to injury, a little bit of salt in the wound, because about 2 days ago I was flipping through the streaming services, as I like to do, just to see what's on there, see if I can add anything to my my lists and whatnot. And it had to have been on HBO Max or something like that. I saw The Happening was on there. I was like, oh, fuck yes, that's great. I don't have to pay for this. That makes me so happy. I'm watching this in 2 days. And I got on there this morning and I could not find the movie anywhere. It was not on any streaming service. So I had to pay money to watch this today, which I am totally upset about, because I've only seen this film 2 times and I did not have to pay for it the first time. So just much to my chagrin, this movie made money off of me. But again, putting the cart before the horse. Kalen, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell me about the first time you watched M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening.
What's up, everybody? I am Kalen Berryman, your resident handsome movie expert.
Hell yeah.
The first time I saw The Happening was in 2008. I believe it was the opening weekend. I went and saw it with my dad. because we were big old M. Night Shyamalan fans.
Hell yeah.
And up to this point, I had not, I mean, not to spoil future pods, up to this point, I had not disliked any Shyamalan movie, really.
Yeah.
I liked some more than others, but nothing had actually like been like a full-blown disappointment for me. So I went into this movie pretty excited, you know?
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree. Had somewhat similar story. My drama teacher, uh, who was very much a surrogate father to me, may have discussed him on this podcast at
We have.
one point or another. But uh, he and I every now and then would go and see movies together. We saw like Iron Man, the original Iron Man. I saw that with him. Ended up seeing Iron Man 2 with him as well. Saw uh X-Men Origins Wolverine with him. Saw Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull with him. Saw The Happening with him. I feel like there was probably more disappointments in that lineup than not, but I do remember Iron Man being quite the
Quite a
thing.
banger.
So
Mhm.
um but yeah, we went and saw this together, and I think both of us kind of walked out of it a little bit more positive at first. Sometimes you just walk out of a movie and for whatever reason, you don't the negative stuff doesn't quite hit you
Mhm.
yet. It takes a little bit of time,
Mhm.
for a movie to settle. But I do remember thinking that it did not have the oomph that I was expecting it to, because I do remember the trailer for this being very mysterious and intriguing. And when I walked out of the movie, I was like, that had less of a impact than I was expecting it to. Um, but before we completely, just lay down in front of a lawnmower. Um,
Yep.
let's talk about a little bit more positive stuff and hopefully more interesting watches in our very first section, the Johnny Horror News. So here at the Johnny Horror News, we give updates on horror movie news, trailers, events, and anything that we've watched recently. Really, horror or otherwise, at this stage in the game, I don't care. I just like talking about movies with you, Kalen. So let's tackle a little bit of news-ish stuff. Since the last time you and I talked, it's been probably like a month and a half now.
Yeah.
This episode was originally supposed to be released in December. And life was very busy and hectic.
Life
So,
was happening, y'all.
um, and yeah, we very much do not get paid to do this. So, sometimes if that's not on the line, then guess what? You're getting it does not take precedent. So we do this for fun and we get it in where we fit it in. All that said, a couple of interesting things in the world of movies has happened. Most notably, some cool trailers have dropped. First and foremost, I'm going to take the first big one, and then you can probably talk about the other one that I'm sure you can figure out what it is. But 28 years later, um, dropped the trailer for it. Danny Boyle's coming back, Alex Garland coming back. Cillian Murphy supposedly making a cameo appearance, though he is not uh, visible in the trailer, supposedly. Um, I saw this trailer when I was at the gym early on a Tuesday morning, and I saw like it had been released like 6 hours earlier, but like 6 hours earlier would have been like 1 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So I'm assuming it was released 6 hours earlier in like UK
Sure.
time or whatever. Uh, but I was floored by that trailer, and I don't think I was the only one because I think within a matter of days it reached the most views for a horror movie trailer since It Chapter 2. It's
Yep.
got some really good vibes. By really good, I mean like really scary
Mhm.
vibes. And I don't know, it seems very much in line with the first two films, which I think are both 28 years later and 28 weeks later, I think are both incredibly well made zombie slash infected movies. Have you seen the trailer and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I watched the trailer right away. I mean, I'm pumped. I'm pumped about it. I 28 Days Later is maybe my second favorite zombie movie of all time.
What's number one?
Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect. Perfect film.
right. I mean, yeah. But I think after that, I mean, I think it's 28 Days Later. I think that's the very next one, and there's some good ones, you know.
Yeah.
I love that movie. I've loved that movie since it came out. That movie created a lifelong love affair with Cillian Murphy,
Yeah.
with Alex Garland. Um, yeah, I think that first one's a total classic. I've only seen 28 Weeks Later one time.
Yeah.
That was when it came out, and I don't remember loving it. I am curious to watch it again with more adult eyes and with less expectations and see what I think about it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no,
The
regarding this one though, the trailer was great. I thought it was awesome. I love the vibe, and Aaron Taylor Johnson is my dog. I think that dude is so underrated. I think he's so
yeah.
much more capable than people think he is. So I'm very pumped about that movie. Definitely one of my most anticipated horror movies next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. There's a number of it just looks beautiful, and rumor has it that at least some of the movie was shot on an iPhone. So if that's the case, I'm just like fucking spitting over here because it's incredible
Mhm.
cinematography. There's this one shot where it looks like Aaron Taylor Johnson and probably his son or whatever, they're like looking at the horizon, and there's this beautifully like shot like greenery, this grassy hill with this like barren tree in the middle of it, and then the infected are like coming over the hill, and you just see their silhouettes. And that I was like on the stairmaster, like drenched in sweat, like not even in the right mind frame to be watching this trailer, and I got chills at that shot. Like it very much scared the piss out of me, just that one thing. And I was like, dude, if it can scare me in this scenario, I can't wait to be fully immersed in the film. So very very excited for that.
Do you know who's
um
scoring it?
I mean, John Murphy did the first two movies, and
That's why I'm
I,
asking.
I think I said it, you know, once before, if not a million times before. But In a House in a Heartbeat is arguably one of the best pieces of horror music ever, and it's been used and reused to death.
Yep.
It can't not make an appearance in this movie, you know.
Dude, right?
So,
Couldn't agree
um,
more.
but I imagine he will be returning. And oddly enough, if I can do a teeny little bit of a segue, I was flipping through Spotify the other day, and it does like the kind of like new music every Friday sort of a deal. They drop new songs, and then they have a list that's specifically catered to you. And John Murphy ended up having a track
Mhm.
that was uh a revamped version of a very, very iconic John Williams theme.
That's right.
Now, would you like to talk about that, sir?
Yeah. So, very, very quick background on this. My first love from 3 years old was Superman. That is, he was the first thing that wasn't a person or a dog or a cat that I loved and cared about in my life, and it's never changed. And gosh, at this point, I guess it was almost 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They dropped the trailer for the new Superman movie coming out in 2025. The James Gunn written and directed, David Corn Sweat, Rachel Brosnahan, and Nicholas Hoult starring, and John Murphy scored Superman movie.
Yeah.
And the trailer was a massive historical success. It's done better engagement than anything ever out of anything DC, anything Batman, anything Warner Brothers pictures of any kind.
Really?
It, yeah, it's number 4 all time in like movie trailer like engagement.
That's
Huge,
insane.
huge response. I'm seeing, like, it's crazy for me because I'm seeing like YouTube channels that don't cover movies are doing like reactions to it. I'm seeing YouTube channels that are like on not even on entertainment topics covering this trailer. I have like normies in my life asking me if I've seen the trailer and if I'm excited about the movie. So
Yeah.
it seems to me like it's gotten some real punch out there. But yeah, that was something I was very excited for and really cool to see that drop. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, no, like, uh, I mean, I'd like to say I've contributed to that a little bit, that success, because I've watched that trailer quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, in defense of other DC movies, I am a sucker for that shit. Like, I can't tell you how many times, even after I've seen the movies dozens of times, how many times I still to this day rewatch the trailer for the Batman, rewatch the teaser trailer for the Batman, rewatch the
The
teaser
trailers are
trailer
great.
for the Dark Knight Rises, the
Uh-huh.
regular trailer for the Dark Knight Rises,
Mhm.
the second regular trailer for the Dark Knight Rises. Like I love that. Same with Man of Steel. Like I think all of those have really really excellent trailers. Regardless of what you think about the movies, like the
Mhm.
trailers did a good job of selling those films, and
Yeah.
I very much feel that this this trailer follows in those footsteps because every time I watch it, I get pumped.
Mhm.
I love what they did with the John Williams score. The first time I watched it, I was like, "Why do I know this music?"
Uh-huh.
Because it wasn't registering because it's like slowed down with the guitar and everything, the
Mhm.
electric guitar, which I love. I think it's great. And then when it does amp up, it changes from the guitar to something more orchestral, but it's still not the same tempo and everything. So like I was like, is that the fucking Superman theme?
Mhm.
Are they using it?
Mhm.
But I like everything that I see. And the gal who plays Lois Lane, what's her name?
Rachel Brosnahan is her name.
Yeah, I didn't know who was playing Lois Lane or what it was. I just saw her and just was immediately like, again, no idea, no reference point or anything like that. I'd seen the picture of him putting on his boot. You like that's
Mhm.
the only
Mhm.
thing I had really seen about this movie. And I
Yeah.
saw her and I was like, well, that's Lois Lane. Like,
Mhm.
duh. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. That's the most Lois Lane looking Lois Lane I've ever seen on screen.
100%. Yeah,
Um,
also she's a great actress, and if you've seen anything else she's in, she gives massive Lois Lane vibes. So I think she's like the perfect choice for that role.
Yeah. I just got again, no dialogue is uttered or anything like that, and I'm like, that's Lois Lane, you know. So,
Yeah.
um, very curious to see what Nicholas Hoult does with Lex Luthor. I honestly have not, I've not ever been a fan of any of the interpretations of Lex Luthor that we've gotten. I love Gene Hackman. I think he gives a great performance in
But he's not Lex
Superman.
Luthor.
It's not Lex Luthor. I think really honestly, the closest interpretation that have ever gotten to a proper Lex Luthor is probably Kevin Spacey. But even that is, in the footsteps of
Of
Gene
Gene
Hackman.
Hackman. Yeah.
Um,
It's a good take.
but yeah, I'm very curious to see because Nicholas Holt has just does no wrong in my eyes.
He's
Like
great.
I
He's
couldn't ever
fantastic.
put him, like, he's never gonna be like, oh yeah, that's like a Brad Pitt or something like that. But every time he's in something, regardless of whether the film is good or not, he is good.
Yep.
He always elevates us. He always brings his A game. So um yeah, and I was when I heard the rumor that crypto was gonna be in it, I was like, why? Why? And then I saw it and I was like, okay, no, that's the best looking CGI dog I've ever seen in my life right there. Let's go. I want to give him a
Well, it's
hug.
funny when I heard that crypto is going to be in it. My first like quick twitch reaction was that it might not be a good idea,
Yeah.
and then my immediate thought after that was like, no, you know what? Fuck it. This is the difference between this movie and the previous movies is that we live in a different era now, and now you can just adapt the comic books to the screen.
Yes, exactly.
You could just do DC Universe, but we're doing it on the screen. We're telling a new story,
Yes.
but it's similar to the comics. It's on the screen. I'm like, you know what? He has a fucking dog.
Yeah.
Superman has a dog named Crypto, who's a
Yeah.
Kryptonian dog with a cape who flies. That's just part of the story.
Yeah.
So when I thought about it that way, I was like, no, you know what? I think it's gonna work. And then when I saw him in the trailer, I'm like, dude, he's everyone's fucking favorite part of the trailer.
Yeah.
Is this little Borkin dog, you know, take us home. And that part of the trailer, just where Crypto bites the cape and then we cut immediately to Superman flying in at the last nanosecond to protect the little girl.
Yeah.
Right there, I was just like, dude, this movie's gonna fucking crush it. Like, I could be wrong. I'm not psychic. Maybe the movie sucks and it bombs, but I have a really good feeling about this one.
I feel very much the same way. Kind of across the board. Like when I watched this trailer, I was like, oh, this is what they're doing. They are,
Mhm.
and I think I saw this in regards to someone talking about the trailer. That they're like, the trailer isn't selling a movie; it's selling a universe. And I'm like, yes, like
Mhm.
this is gonna be the DC universe. This is what it
Right,
should have always been.
right.
Unfortunately, people just didn't have clear heads back in the day because they were coming off of we were coming off of two different things. You were coming
Mhm.
off of what Marvel had done with theirs, which they had started with Iron Man and done kind of a real world ish adaptation with the fantastical elements and slowly bled in more fantasy as it went along.
Mhm.
And then you had what Chris Nolan had done with the Dark Knight trilogy, which was how do we take this comic book character and put him in a real world scenario.
Mhm.
And so when it came time for Man of Steel, it didn't really know which one it wanted to do, so it tried to do both. And then that theme kind of continued through some of the earlier bits of the DCEU until it just went full fantasy mode and it just nothing ever quite meshed.
Mhm.
And here it just seems like, yeah, we're in the comic book world. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. We're just going for it, you know?
Well, it's like you think about the original X-Men when he's like, you go outside in these things, and then Cyclops says, what would you prefer, yellow spandex? Like,
Yeah.
the movies were blatantly apologizing for being comic books.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
We
can
are
I
completely past that. Good.
I no, I just remember coming out of X-Men 2 with my friend and his family, and we were on the drive back home, and my buddy's sister, who was a movie fanatic, was talking about like, oh yeah, like it's not like they could do them in their proper X-Men uniforms. You couldn't have Wolverine in like his yellow suit. And I do remember like leaning over to my buddy and being like, dude, that would be so cool. And then she was like, yeah, that'd just be so stupid. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, how stupid would that be? I
And
wouldn't
then,
watch that.
here we are 20 years later, then we
Yep.
finally got that. And it's what everyone wanted all along, you know?
Yep. Hmm.
So, um, yeah, I mean, sometimes the right way forward. I mean, especially now, like that, there are no restraints. Like before, it was like we couldn't do X, Y, or Z because special effects weren't up to date and everything. Now there's just no excuse. Like, let's just build those worlds, man. Let's live in them. Well, that's what's on the horizon. Have you seen anything good lately?
Well, I went and saw Nosferatu on Christmas Eve.
Nice.
Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. So yeah, that was one of my most anticipated movies this year.
And what were your thoughts? Two thumbs
2 thumbs up.
way up.
2 thumbs way up from Jony and Kalen. I loved it.
Yeah, I saw it Christmas Day. We snuck away in the evening to go see it.
Okay.
And I can't say like, oh yeah, like I was pleasantly surprised or anything. Like, I knew what I was going into. I had seen the trailers and I was like, yeah, like that's a Robert Eggers Nosferatu, you know?
Yep.
But yeah, I do think like it was, I'm not gonna lie, both Celeste and I were like fucking exhausted. So like I'm like this, like every couple of minutes I'm like,
Yeah.
because like you're in a dark theater. That movie's fucking dark as fuck.
It's dark
Even
as shit,
when it's
man.
not nighttime, everything's lit by like candlelight and shit. I'm like, dude, it's like I'm so like I'm into this movie. I'm so into it. I'm loving every second of it, but I cannot for the life of me keep my fucking eyes open right now. So
I was also very tired.
It's not like it's, you know, a fucking action-packed movie. It is a very slow burn, like proper gothic vampire movie, you know? But I never fell asleep, you know. It's just fighting the urge to. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful movie, great performances. Your boy Aaron Taylor Johnson right there.
It's great.
Very
so
good.
you know, it's funny. It's funny. This movie, I went into it with the utmost confidence. I know Aaron Taylor Johnson is great. Did you ever see Nocturnal Animals?
Dude, I have not seen that one. I hear
Okay.
he's great in it. I know Jake Gyllenhaal and Amy Adams are also in it. It looked really good.
So in a movie with Jake Gyllenhaal and Amy Adams, he's the best actor.
Yeah.
In that movie, and he gives like a Oscar-worthy performance in that movie. So I have had the utmost confidence in him for a long time. I have had a high degree of belief in Nicholas Hoult since, I don't know, 2015 or so.
Yeah.
With Fury Road. Willem Dafoe is one of the actual gods of the craft of acting. You know what I mean? Bill Skarsgård is great, and I kind of had a feeling he would be great. I was worried about Lily Rose Depp because Lily Rose Depp had never shown me great acting chops. She'd never shown me a high degree of talent, and I was concerned that role was initially supposed to go to Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah.
Who I knew would crush it, and I was worried, can Lily Rose Depp do this? And I thought Lily Rose Depp fucking knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I mean,
she killed it.
It's her fucking show, man. It really is.
So. She's the star. Yeah.
Yeah. She did great. She did great. Well, you know, that's the thing is that like I know the story of Nosferatu the back of my hand. It is Dracula. It is a ripoff of Dracula, an unlicensed ripoff of Dracula that was done in the early 1920s. The story is very much close to the source material, and this is a remake of a remake, you know? So it's not like I didn't know what I was in for, and no spoilers, but it doesn't exactly change like the narrative perspective changes in this, I would say a little bit. It shifts, but the end result is more or less
it's Nosferatu. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So he said
what you're going for is, I would say, the cinematography, Robert Eggers' eye and attention to detail, and these incredible performances, which like I was very satisfied with all of that.
He did say going into this that when he was writing the script, it was a combination of Bram Stoker's novel, the actual original 1922 Nosferatu film, actual vampire folklore,
Yeah.
and then some of his own original story. It was kind of a blend of all those things.
Yeah.
But it is, above all things, it is Robert Eggers doing Nosferatu. That is ultimately what it is. So like I agree with you. Like you kind of know what you're going into. I felt that way, like in a big way, going into this movie. Like I kind of know exactly what I'm going to see.
Yeah.
But what surprised me was the degree to which Lily Rose Depp stepped up and was game to actually like go there and just be amazing.
I will say now, upon reflection of this movie, that it is without question the best interpretation, like the best like film adaptation of the story of Dracula.
Yeah.
As close as Coppola's version is to the source material, I just cannot um I cannot abide the love story narrative. I cannot, because in the novel that is not what happens at all. Dracula is a fucking plague, a fucking demon that they like do. They all band together to stop it, and he is just like after um
Mina.
Mina, yeah, just like after her. And
Mhm.
this very much feels there is a little bit, obviously a little bit more romance, but it's almost like it's in this version of the story, Nosferatu, it feels very much like a toxic relationship. Like, she doesn't not know how to get away from this specter that she's invited, into her heart, her soul, or whatever, and she's drawn to it. And in those terms, it just works so much better for me than the Gary Oldman Winona Ryder version of it.
I love that movie, but I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie is just fucking spectacle. It's beautiful. Gary Oldman is undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
Um and it is so close. It is so fucking close to, and I mean, Dracula's my favorite novel of all time. Like, I remember just like getting done with that book and being like, that is how you fucking tell a story right there. So good from start to finish.
Yeah.
But yeah. Now, with that in mind, we're gonna do a little smidge here. We're going 30 minutes already. We haven't even gotten to our fucking main event, but I did want to take a slight little detour since we're not gonna set aside an episode this year for some of our favorite and least favorite movies. I was just wondering if you could give me like three of your favorite movies from this past year and maybe go in like reverse order from, all the way up to one, to start with your third and then go to your most favorite, and maybe just kind of give a little detail on that.
Okay. Well, my number one is going to disappoint people then, but I would say three. It's been a weird year for movies.
I agree
There
with
are,
that.
there were a lot of movies that I liked. There were not a lot of movies that I loved.
Same. This is actually hard for me to make this list because
Mhm.
I felt very much the same way.
Yeah, there's a lot of flicks that I was like, that was good. There's not a lot of movies like, damn, like that one's going on the shelf forever.
Yeah.
Um, so for number three, and I had a little bit of a hard time coming up with my number three, I'm gonna go The Fall Guy.
Really?
Yeah. Did you see The Fall Guy?
I have not watched it.
Okay. Well, awesome. This is kind of fun then. Um, I am less of a stupid action movie than most people. I think I'm a little bit less of a dumb action movie than most of my friends. Like I don't like Fast and the Furious as much as most people do. Um, I don't like Michael Bay movies as much as most people do. I have a harder time with that sort of thing. Um, without meaning to sound pretentious, I just that's not as much my genre or interest. And Fall Guy looked like it was the epitome of that.
Yeah.
So I wasn't interested in it, but I ended up watching it because my girlfriend likes Emily Blunt and my girlfriend likes Ryan Gosling. So we watched it and I fucking loved it. It's
Really?
fantastic. It's completely self-aware. It's entirely a self-aware film. The main character in the movie is a stunt double who gets injured and kind of loses his great career as a stunt double. And the woman he was seeing at the time is getting a big shot to be a big director, direct a huge movie. She's basically directing an MCU movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, the plot is basically his ex-girlfriend is directing this big MCU movie and she needs him to come help do it. And the movie is so littered with like nods and winks at movie fans or people
Yeah.
who have worked in the industry. So it's like if you've been an actor or if you've been a stunt person or if you're just somebody who loves movies, this movie is made like specifically for us. And it talks directly to you in a way. It was hilarious. The humor was fantastic. The action was great. I love the main characters. Like I love Ryan Gosling's character. I love Emily Blunt's character. I love the supporting characters. Aaron Taylor Johnson's in the movie as well, and he's
Hey.
great. The movie, it's a blast. I had a fucking blast watching this movie. I can't wait to watch it again.
That's a strong recommend. I'll have to check it out. I was interested to watch it. It was always going to be kind of like, oh, I have nothing else to watch. We'll watch Fall Guy. It was always going to be that movie. But now that you sold it this well, it's going to move up higher on the list. That's for sure.
Nice.
Okay. If I had a little bit of a hard time with my number three, not necessarily because again, it was just kind of like I knew what my two favorite ones were for sure, but the third was
Mhm.
like, okay, I have all these movies that I like, but is there one that's like a notch above all
Mhm.
of that? I settled on The Substance,
Okay.
um, Demi
Well,
Moore,
that's
and
one of my big misses this year.
yeah, I very much recommend checking it out.
Okay.
Not only is it very just a great concept,
Mhm.
but the way it's played out is equal parts horrific, interesting, and sexy all at the same time.
Okay.
Like the entire time you're watching it, either something very interesting is happening, either something very horrific is happening, or it's very sexy. And you just can't not watch the movie. You can't take your eyes off of it. It's very, very engaging. Um both lead actresses just give incredible performances, and there is just some very messed up and disturbing body horror. And I I think this is going to be a movie that sticks around for a while. Like it's very much in the social zeitgeist, and I
Mhm.
think it might even be up for some awards this season. So it's very exciting, particularly for a horror movie. What about number two for you, buddy?
Well, I said number one was going to be disappointing, but I actually changed my mind. I'm going to go Robert Eggers' Nosferatu is going to be my number two.
Oh, okay. There it
Yeah.
is. Nice.
Mhm.
All right. Well, we just discussed it, so enough said.
Yep.
For me, number two is Terrifier 3. This is a movie that I was really looking forward to. Kind of ended up checking almost every box for me. I didn't love it as much as I loved the second one, but um it has great Christmas vibes. It goes hard. It's funny and scary, and yeah, it's just kind of pretty much everything I would want out of a Christmas slasher movie. And that is like one of my favorite subgenres of horror. So
Sure.
um, I was very pleased with that one. What's number one for you, buddy?
Number one for me is Long Legs.
Nice.
Yeah. I
That
think that's the best movie of the year.
really.
Um, yeah, if I like Truth Serum in the Arm, Gun to the Head, that's it for me. That's the best movie of the year. I I think the movie is I usually make fun of people who use the word deceptively when they do film reviews
Yeah.
because I feel like that's just like usually a word for like not knowing how to explain it. But
Yeah.
I do think it's deceptively impressive and complex because I feel like it sort of presents you with what feels like it's going to be a very kind of over the plate. It almost feels like you're just going to get Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, this is going to be Silence of the Lambs. And when I was sitting down in the theater, I was like, okay, that's okay. I like Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
And then like it just builds and builds and builds from there and becomes this very unique story
Yes.
that I just loved. I just loved it. And I loved Micah Monroe. Gosh, I can't think of the character's name at this moment, which I'm annoyed by. But I loved her performance as that character. I loved her relationships with the other characters in the movie, with her boss and her boss's family,
Yeah.
and the way the story, like, I love stories that feel like they're going to be entirely grounded and then just kind of go all the way off the rails in the fantastical, but it does so slowly and carefully that you never felt like you left the real world.
Yeah.
You just feel like these incredible things are happening in the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I love that movie. I think that is that's the only movie that's come out this year that I bought on 4K the first day it came out. So
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, if we did a top 5 list, that would have been in my top 5. It was almost my number 3. Um Substance just kind of won out just on fucking originality and how long I really thought about, like, I thought about how long I sat with these movies after the fact, like
Mm-hmm.
how long I thought about them, the effect that they kind of had on me. My number 1 is a little film that we might have talked about a little bit on this podcast. I definitely reviewed it this year. The Last Stop in Yuma County, which is a small independent film by an up and coming filmmaker, and this was his first feature, and it was also produced by a buddy of mine who sold his house to get this movie made. So basically, like,
Such
I
a
love,
fucking cool story, man.
yeah,
Sorry.
it's great. It's a great story. The movie itself is like Quentin Tarantino like levels of just craft and simplicity. Like, Reservoir Dogs will always be my favorite Tarantino movie because I love all of his stuff, but I love how simple Reservoir Dogs is. Essentially, guys in a room talking about a bank heist that went bad.
Mm-hmm.
And The Last Stop in Yuma County is essentially people in a cafe dealing with the results of a bank heist that went bad. And I love the movie. I love the story. The acting is top notch. Um, the just the craft on display and knowing a little bit about the behind the scenes just makes it that much more impressive. And I think also what makes it my favorite is beyond just the film itself, like what was put to screen. It's that um something like that can be done by you know people that are not too different from you and me, basically. Like,
Yeah. You don't have
incredible
to be a
art.
Hollywood Nepo baby.
Yes,
Yeah.
incredible art can still be made by people outside of like the Hollywood sphere. So that movie really inspired me this year, and I loved every minute of it from start to finish. So those are Kalen and mine's 3 favorite movies from this year. If you guys haven't seen them, go check them out. And without any further fucking ado, nearly 45 minutes in, we are gonna get this fucking show on the road. Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get a drink. Here at Johnny's Well, Kalen and I bring our 2 favorite things in the world together. Our powers united. We discuss movies and alcohol. So, Kalen, are you currently drinking anything tonight, right now, at this moment?
No booze, brother. Just some tangerine soda water.
All right. Well, I'm right there with you in my very, very cool Nosferatu
Hey,
souvenir cup. I
check
got
that out.
a big gulp of water. So, uh, but we're not just talking about what we're drinking tonight. We are talking about the prospects of drinking while watching The Happening, which I did today. I very much had some drinks while I watched this movie at like 12 in the afternoon. It was great. Um,
Oh boy.
but, buddy, if you were going to have people over to your house and you were a terrible host and forced them to watch The Happening,
Oh my boy.
what drink would you be forcing down people's throats?
I love how in lockstep in this thought process you and I are, because that's exactly where my mindset is with this drink. Is exactly what I was thinking. I'm having people over and I'm making them watch The Happening. So I hate them and I hate myself and we hate each other. So what do we drink in that scenario? And I came to a very simple answer, and that is Jensen's Malort.
Ugh,
You ever heard of Malort?
I have heard of Malort. I've never tried it. It's just the very sound of it sounds awful.
It's so much worse than it sounds. So Malort, Malort is an Amaro style liqueur that
Ugh.
is from and famous in Chicago, and it's a
Yes.
very serious part of Chicago bar culture. If you're a bartender in Chicago, you do shots of Malort. You
Yeah.
do shots of Malort with other people. You do shots of Malort with guests. My first experience with Malort actually was really, it was terrible and awesome at the same time, because Sandy and I were in Chicago on vacation. We were at a bar. Shout out to this bar, Scofflaw, in Chicago. And we sat down at the bar top and we were hungover, and we were not, I was not planning on having alcohol, I don't think. And we mentioned to each other that we have to try Malort before we leave Chicago. And the bartender, just like a robot, his head just goes whoop. He's like, "You guys have never tried Malort?" And we're like, "No." And he walks over, he sets down 2 shot glasses and he starts pouring it. And me and Sandy are just like, "What the fuck?" And he goes, "Don't look at each other, look at me." He goes, "You guys can do this, okay?" He's like, "Take a deep breath and think about grapefruit." And we slammed the Malort. And he's like, "Good job. I'm proud of both of you. We did it. We did it." And he's like, "Now what can I get for you?" That's before we'd even ordered. This guy just walks up to us, pours us Malort, and we have this whole little experience. Mwah. Chef's kiss. Great experience, other than the fact that this alcohol is terrible.
Ugh.
And the people who make it and sell it, they know how bad it is and they know what kind of people drink it. So like the advertising around Malort is like that. Like there are Malort advertisements, like professional advertisements that are like, "Malort, tonight is the night you fight your dad." Isn't that fucking great?
Oh, no! That's
So
fantastic. Ugh.
right. So for this movie, we are getting a bottle of Malort and 2 shot glasses, and we are just gonna take fucking shots of Malort because we hate
No,
ourselves.
let's just fucking do it. I love it. Okay, so mine is probably the easiest a drink has ever come to me for a movie. Just because it happens to be, with the exception of being on the Pacific coast instead of the Eastern coast, I feel like it checks all the boxes that this movie is really like really pushing, which is, the earth is fighting back against, pollution and global warming and blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
Really fucking force it down your throat just like the Malort. So I was
Exactly.
like, okay, what kind of hot garbage not only, falls in line with this movie's messaging, but also will just like get you smashed so you can deal with how ridiculous this feature film is. And I settled on a Los Angeles water.
Oh, baby.
So,
Woo.
the recipe for this, that at least one of the recipes, I'm sure there's more than one, but the one that I settled on, because it seemed to have the most alcohol in it, was Let's see. It's a half ounce of lemon juice, 1 ounce of blue curacao, half an ounce of raspberry liqueur, half an ounce of Midori, half an ounce of vodka, half an ounce of white rum, half an ounce of tequila, and half an ounce of dry gin, and then just one solid bullet in the mouth.
One loaded weapon directly into the mouth.
But
Oh my.
guys, if you could see this picture of it, doesn't even look appetizing. Like, a lot of the other pictures look good. This one looks like basically like if you took kale and spinach and like orange juice and blended it up and put it over ice. That's what this looks like.
That's why it's called LA water. It's
Yeah,
not
it
supposed to
looks
look
no,
appetizing.
it looks trash. I imagine it actually tastes fairly good because all those ingredients mix very well together. It's not too far from a Long Island iced tea. It's just a little bit skankier. So,
And a Long
but
Island iced tea is already very skanky.
yeah,
You know what I
it's
mean? Like
yeah,
you're already fully in the trailer park ordering a Long Island iced tea. So this is
yeah,
just like, woo.
yeah,
You're like the
next
guy who
level
got kicked
shit.
out of the trailer park.
Yeah, now you got to go live in the fucking like camps, on
No,
the
they won't
streets
take
of
you either.
LA.
They
Oh
won't take you
Jesus.
either. You're by
You're
yourself.
right. Right. Only PBR allowed it around those parts.
Exactly.
And buddy, if uh do you consider this an eating movie? There's nothing in this movie besides probably like the acting that is vomit
It's gonna make
worthy,
you sick.
right?
I would hope you'd be eating during this movie because you need something to occupy yourself and entertain yourself.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
I I actually made myself a nice little wannabe charcuterie board so I could
there you go.
build while snacking,
Right. That's very
It's
wise, I think.
twice the occupations to keep my mind busy.
That's right.
All right. Oh, god damn. All right. We're
It's one of
about
those
as
movies you bring a good book to, you know?
they don't call them second screen films for nothing, pal. Without any further ado, we are on to our next category. Blah blah blah. You've seen it all before.
What?
All right. Let's get into the nitty gritty. Kalen, you are our resident plot giver with your gift for storytelling, so please enamor us.
Well, it's a pretty simple story. It's a high school science teacher um in Philadelphia has his day interrupted by what appears to be a terrorist attack. There is a toxin going around that seems to be making people commit suicide. And the toxin seems to be spreading. And eventually this man decides he needs to get his wife and get out of the northeast metropolitan area. And violence ensues.
Perfect. Thank you. Could not and would not have said it better myself. So in keeping with the title of this category, can you think of any movie that kind of plays into this concept? Any film that this movie might have been taking from in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I mean, it kind of felt like a zombie movie in some ways.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot in tone of like horror movies from the 50s and
Yeah.
60s. I am actually not doing a great job right now of thinking of something specific right off the top.
I got one.
Please.
That falls into that category. First and foremost, you're not wrong. Like even M. Night Shyamalan said that this is supposed to be like an extraordinary B movie, basically. But Invasion of the Body Snatchers
There it
is
is.
probably like
There it
the
is.
big one,
Mhm.
I've honestly never seen the original. I've only seen the 1970s one. I know a lot of purists will, yell at me for not having seen the OG, um, black and white version, but I'm perfectly content with the 70s version. But again, this there are several other movies that this film is definitely pulling from in that regard. I would even suggest maybe, somewhat uh further back H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds sort
Yeah.
of vibes going on for sure.
Mhm.
Um so yeah, definitely not an entirely original concept, just maybe repurposed to something a little less extraordinary. Um so with all of that out of the way, let's just talk a little bit about what Wikipedia has to say about the production of the movie here. Following the critical and commercial failure of Lady in the Water in 2006, M. Night Shyamalan struggled to sell his next spec script entitled The Green Effect. By January 2007, it was reported that several studios had received the screenplay, but none expressed interest enough to purchase it. As a result, Shyamalan began taking notes and collecting ideas from meetings before returning home to Philadelphia to rewrite his script. In 2007, March of 2007, rather, the film was purchased as The Happening by 20th Century Fox. Mark Wahlberg joined the cast, and the theatrical release date was set for June 13th, 2008. The film is Shyamalan's first R-rated project, which he produced alongside Sam Mercer and Barry Mendel. This is incredible. I could say both those names. I don't even know what's
Hey,
happening right now. uh,
that's new.
the India-based company UTV Motion Pictures also financed half the film's budget. On March 15th, 2007, Shyamalan described The Happening as a 1960s paranoia film similar to The Birds and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Production began in August 2007 in Philadelphia, with the film taking place on Walnut Street in Rittenhouse Square Park, in Masterman High School on South Smedley Street, and at the G Lodge in Phoenixville. During post production, the film was recorded at Sony's scoring stage and composed by our boy James Newton Howard in his sixth collaboration with Shyamalan. All right. That's the summation of the production without getting into the finer details because, yeah, that's not what Wikipedia had to offer. So thank you, Wikipedia, for what you did give us. Any thoughts on the production beyond it sounding like it went rather smoothly?
Um, I can understand why nobody wanted this script.
I can also understand that. And we will get to that shortly. But before we do, we're gonna fucking grin our teeth and bear it in our next section, the good stuff. In the good stuff, we talked about the things we liked in the movie, and surprisingly, I have four things.
Wow. All right. Let's rock and roll,
Uh,
brother.
yeah, I will just go ahead and start this one off. The construction site in the very beginning. I think that is a
Yeah.
very well done scene. Very very intense, well paced, and when you see the bodies jumping from the rooftop, it is disturbing. I will say that I do not think that James Newton Howard's score um, really blends well. It's almost a little too intense for how early on this movie is, and I kind of would have preferred had we gone with something a little bit more um, ethereal and possibly sinister instead of just outright intense orchestral dun 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 dun. But I do like that, like, minute and a half that we spend with the construction workers. I think that scene is fairly effective. Your turn, sir.
Well, I didn't write that one down, but I do agree with you.
Yeah.
Some kind of broad stuff. There's not a lot here, but I thought there was some good cinematography, as there typically is in Shyamalan movies.
Mm-hmm.
The scene when John Leguizamo's character gets into the car with the strangers and pulls away, and it's Wahlberg and I can't remember the character names, and I don't care to. It's Wahlberg and Zoe Deschanel and the little girl.
Yeah.
As it's like pulling away from them, like I was like, oh, it's a good shot, and yeah, I thought there was good stuff with that, like with just camera work.
There's definitely some good camera work. There's also some not so good camera work that I will talk about later.
That too.
But I will say, just as you know, even as someone who's just amateur at this, like when you are outside, and this, I think Shyamalan said 80%, 85% of this movie was shot outside. Like if you're outside, like I don't know, man, like just being able to put the camera places, just because shots are just infinitely better looking when you have great backgrounds and stuff like that. And when you're outside, just in nature, things just become infinitely prettier to look at. So like you can just point the camera in any direction until your characters do X, Y, or Z. And odds are you're gonna get a much better looking shot than you would if you were trying to make stuff look interesting inside of a building, you know? That's not to take away from you know what hard work I'm sure the cinematographer put in, but I do think that for the most part this film, when they're doing like those wide shots in the outdoors and they're walking around and stuff, it's easy on the eyes. um Before we absolutely just destroy all the performances in this movie, I did have one highlight of a really strong performance, and pun intended on the strong performance. Jeremy Strong, for known for Succession fame, where he plays Kendall.
I have never
Kendall
seen
Roy. Great show. But he plays the private whatever that they come upon, the soldier, and
Young soldier, yeah.
he is in a different movie. Like he is giving a next level acting that makes everybody else look terrible in his 5-10 minutes he's on screen. He's so believable in this just like real world scenario, and he's so much more scared and frightened than and shook up than anybody else is on screen about any of this. I'm like, yeah, that's probably what it would be like. And everybody else is always just like, again, we're not even in this part yet, but everybody else is just like, huh? What? Huh? What? The entire time. But yeah, Jeremy Strong really just bringing it home. And at this stage, I would have said that he is a newcomer in the acting. This is almost 20 years ago now.
Yes,
And he is out acting everybody else in this movie. Anything else on your end?
Yeah, there's a little bit. Let's see. I thought there was some bits of good dialogue. I thought there was a couple good jokes. um the kind of quirky couple they meet when she asks her husband, or she tells her husband, you have the binoculars from back when you were spying on the neighbors,
Yeah.
and like we're just supposed to ignore that, or like how he keeps asking them if they like hot dogs.
Hot dogs. Yeah.
I actually thought those were pretty charming. I'm actually just gonna roll through these real quick because it's really
Yeah.
not much, but
Yeah.
I liked that. I thought the bit where he gives the mood ring to the little girl to make her feel better was like the only time in the entire movie that I believe that character was like not Mark Wahlberg for like
Yeah.
1 second.
Yeah.
And then when they're in the model home, you know, he talks to the fake plant. I'm not saying it's a good joke, but it got a laugh out of me. And then at one point he goes to drink the fake wine, and that gag got me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like and don't like that bit because I'm like, it's funny,
Right.
but the levity doesn't suit the scene at all.
Right.
You know? Like
Yeah.
the way he's acting and everything, I'm like, it just doesn't suit the
Right.
dire scenario we're supposed to believe these people are in.
It's like
But
you're
I
putting,
do
like,
like it when he's like sitting
right.
there and he's like doing this with a
He's like, oh no.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah.
it is like he's
I was
like a Looney
watching
Tunes
it.
joke. Huh?
I was watching it and I was like, is he like he knows it's fake. He just saw the kid. What is he doing?
Right.
Oh man. I also had a one line that I pulled that I actually liked. Just the little bit of dialogue that they have with the old woman at the dinner table where she asks who's chasing who. Like, you know, someone's always, you know, it's never when you guys look at each other like that, it's never like equal. Someone's always going after the other person. And I like that little bit of dialogue because, you know, it felt like a very true thing that, you know, even if two people are in love, there's always someone who's uh, kind of doing the yearning, you know, that's always kind of, you know, going after the other one and even if it's in the smallest thing. So I thought that that little bit of dialogue that they have at the dinner table was a nice little piece. But
You know what's funny is I actually hated that.
really,
Yeah, I hated it as a kid because I thought it was depressing. And as an adult, I don't really agree.
that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah,
That's
I just
fair.
don't really agree. I think that I think in relationships that really work, and I think you and I are pretty good authorities on this subject.
Mhm.
I think in relationships that really work, they work because both people are showing up for each other. And if one person is making the other person pursue, I don't think relationships like that last.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. Like I'm not sitting here saying that it's like a like oh you gotta like did you see Challengers by any chance the Zendaya tennis movie? Okay, so I watched that movie last night and that is very much kind of more in the relationships in that kind of feel more like actual chasing, but like for me in this moment in the dinner table thing it was more kind of like a cutesy like very minuscule like for me in my mind like I do things to you know garner like my wife's affection not beyond anything you know nothing serious like I'm not oh I need you to love me but like I like doing small things to get to elicit a response from her, you know, and that to me is kind of what that was more in line with of just like little little kindnesses and stuff like that. Like I know in this movie that, you know, there's a weird relationship thing going on with Mark Wahlberg and Zoe Deschanel that really is not explained in any way, shape, or form. And that's more what that's leaning towards. But I did like
Exactly.
that
That's why I don't
just
like it.
yeah. But anyways, I digress.
Yep.
My last and final thing was that I paused this movie several times to, you know, go do bathroom breaks, you know, all the tequila remember. And I think my first bathroom break, I was about 10 minutes in, and then I saw how much time was left, and I was like, oh, thank God, it's only 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that ended up on my
It's
good
a
list.
tight 90.
Yep, let's get it.
Thank goodness.
Wham,
We can
bam,
only
thank you,
drink so
ma'am.
much Malort, you know?
Yeah. And we are definitely going to go over that time limit just in this episode, since we are only 20 minutes away from that runtime, and we have our longest section coming up next. The shit. Surprise, surprise. In this category, we talk about the things we didn't like. And my God, I have more stuff on this list than I have ever had for another movie I have ever done a podcast on. So I'm going to start first and foremost, right out the gate. The credits, I hate them. They look cheap. It was cheap, cheesy, and it looked like trash. It looked like a really bad early 90s music video, and I don't know what the fuck it was about. Hated it. Okay, it's out of the way. Your turn.
Okay, well, I mean, okay, hear me out.
Yes.
I like The Departed.
Yes.
I like The Fighter.
Yes.
I like probably several other Mark Wahlberg movies that aren't immediately coming to mind.
Mhm.
But if that man is asked to do anything against type,
Yeah.
he sucks at acting.
Yeah.
I mean, I will save a little bit of the blame for that because you see some of that in Zooey Deschanel as well. So some of that is the director's fault, but you can tell that there's just a degree of like, all right, Mark, listen, this guy is a smart guy. He's an intelligent guy. He's a sensitive guy. He's a thoughtful guy. He's not, you know, trying to find the right word to not offend people. He's not some dude from Boston like you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He had no idea how to play that. And there were times where it seemed like he thought the way you play a smart guy is to have a little bit of a lisp and try to sound like a pussy.
Yeah.
Because that must be what a smart guy is. Like he just clearly has no idea how. And this is something I've talked about before. It's a theory I have in acting. I think a great actor can play a lot of different things, but I don't think dumb people can play really smart people because you don't know how to get into that mindset.
Yeah.
So I think casting more of a blunt instrument as like a really smart person is usually not a good idea. Now, to be clear, I don't know Mark Wahlberg personally, and maybe he's a very smart guy, but I wonder if there's a little bit of that going on. But he just clearly has no fucking clue how to play a character that's not just some tough guy from Boston.
Yeah. I this is like my third thing down, the acting is extraordinarily over the top is what I wrote. It's not just Mark Wahlberg. I think the script, I think whatever Shyamalan was going for, if he was trying to write a B movie, from the 50s and 60s and take his way of writing dialogue and put that flourish on it, the marriage is a bad marriage. It does not work. Nor does his direction of the material. And I think a lot of these people are fine actors on their own merit, but a lot of times even really good actors cannot rise above the material. And I don't necessarily think anybody in this movie is a very good actor. Like I said, I think they are all fine in some degree. They all have, all of the leads have decent enough careers, right?
Sure.
Mark Wahlberg has a very great career, but
he's got
like
a great
you said,
career. He's had an incredible career.
um,
Well, but
so
so here's the thing. I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. Like, the script is bad. Shyamalan directed them poorly, and that shows up in Zoe Deschanel's performance, where it's more awkward than her average performance. Even in John Leguizamo,
Yeah.
even though I felt like there were scenes where he was the only one who seemed like he had ever had acting lessons before.
Yes.
But my point is that as poorly as all that was, an actor with a modicum of versatility would have been better in Mark Wahlberg's role than he was.
Oh yeah,
He was clearly a lost lamb trying to be a guy who's not. And I'm not just talking about like the dramatic direction of this and that. I'm talking about literally him trying to portray and emote and give us this different person. He just clearly was completely lost on that. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, it is, without question, his just as far as the performances I've seen from him, it is without question his worst. It just I was just watching it, just like flabbergasted by every choice that he made, every line delivery. I'm like, who talks like this? Why?
Mhm.
Why are we doing this?
Why is this happening?
Yeah, like
100%.
what are we doing here, gang?
Mhm.
And in regards to Zoe Deschanel, like I legit, and I don't want this to come off as offensive or anything like that, but like, because I just a little bit of background for anybody who hasn't listened. We've talked about Shyamalan, um, having characters that have maybe a little bit of mental health issues and that he doesn't always represent them in the best way. And we are introduced to Zoe Deschanel's character Alma. Before we meet her, we're introduced to her through a discussion that uh, Julian and Elliot have about her, uh, saying that it sounds like she didn't want to get married to Elliot, basically. Um, so right out there, we have this negative connotation to her, and then when we're introduced to her, she's like lost, like she's sitting in her own like living room or whatever, just kind of like zoning out. And I was very much like, again, I've only seen this movie one time back in 2008 when it came out, and I was like, is she a character with a disability? Like, is that what's happening here? And I thought that for a good chunk of the movie as I watched it this time. And I was like, did I miss something? What's going on? I don't remember this being part of the story because she doesn't seem to have a grasp on anything that's going on. And the way she acts and the way she talks, it's so childish. Like, did that come across at all to you? Like
Yes.
watching this?
Yes. Shit, dude, that character is inexplicable. It's like, it's crazy. She's lost and confused all the time. It's hard to even explain. Like, she's just absurd. That scene where they're walking and she's just like, I went out for dessert with a coworker and I lied to you and told you I was working late, but really I had gone out for dessert with a coworker and I just wanted to tell you in case we all die. It was just like, folks listening to the podcast, I just delivered that better than she did. Like,
Yeah.
it is so bad. And it's just
Well,
like,
and then his response is, "You lied to me."
you lied
And
to
then
me?
they cut away from it, and that's it. I was
That's
like,
it.
that's that we've
That's
had
the
this.
whole conversation.
We've been building to this for the last like 45 minutes, and
Yeah,
that's it. What
that's
is
it.
the point?
And then the big payoff for that is later in the movie. He says, "Oh yeah, well recently there was this pharmacist, really good looking, and I asked her where the cough syrup was, and I didn't even have a cough, and I almost bought it because she
Yeah.
was real good looking." And then she's like, "Are you kidding?" And then he does this very like, and like that's the summation of that subplot in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like what are we doing here?
Yeah, I agree. The
Yeah.
her whole thing, man. Like her whole character, I don't understand. I
Mhm.
I I don't even like that whole subplot. I'm like, what is the problem? Like, what is their issue. It is never explained. Like, she says she doesn't like to show her emotions, but I feel like she shows her emotions quite a
She has a
bit
lot of
throughout the movie.
emotions. Yep.
And yeah, John Leguizamo's character suggests that she didn't want to get married because he saw her crying before the wedding. That really doesn't go anywhere. They never dive more into that. I don't understand what the problem with this relationship is supposed to be.
I mean, I don't either, and it makes me worry about M a little bit.
Yeah,
But I think they're trying to do. I think what he's trying to do is basically just the idea that she's kind of a capricious person.
yeah,
She's kind of a free spirit. I don't want to be bolted down. I'd prefer to be irresponsible type of person. That this very like responsible, buttoned up, I do what I'm supposed to, I be where I'm supposed to, and I want to be committed to the person I love type of person is pursuing her. And that this event where they face harrowing circumstances and almost die, um, that's supposed to be sort of her having a character arc where she realizes that she does in fact love her life and her husband, and she does want to be with him, and she doesn't want to take him for granted. That's what I think the script is trying to do. It just
yeah,
feels terribly unearned.
yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying. Never once in this movie do I get the idea that she's a free spirit at all. Again, like I get the sense that she is. It almost seems like he's again like taking care of her, protecting her because she seems so out of sorts every
Mhm.
time we see her. She never seems like she's an adult that has any um
Agency of any kind.
agency, yeah,
Yeah.
at all.
Mhm.
Very odd choices across the board. I just don't understand that character. I mean, I don't understand either of the two leads at all. Again, like so much of the stuff that Elliot says and does throughout the movie, I'm just like, this. What are you? What are you talking about? Who are you? There's a point where one of the characters is talking to Zoe Deschanel, and I think it's the hot dog guy, and is like, "Oh yeah, he's doesn't give up, does he?" And you see him over there talking to the Jeremy Strong soldier character, and they're going over a map, and I'm like, "What do you talk? What? He's over there looking at a map. Like, what do you mean he doesn't give up? Are you giving up? What does it? What does it even say about this character?"
What no, it right. Okay. So I just used the expression unearned. What in the story prompted him to say that?
Yes, exactly.
Like nothing happened. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
For a movie called The Happening, there's a lot of nothing happening.
There's
I
a lot
really
of
do
nothing
feel that.
happening. Yep.
um okay, so getting back to like basic story things, like so when John Leguizamo's character dies, spoiler alert,
I mean,
we're
we're
saving you
spoiling the whole movie here,
we're
Johnny.
saving you guys the trouble, trust us. um when he dies, like I feel nothing. I feel nothing about that, and I'm like, well, yeah, because this movie starts with all these people dying, and then we immediately cut to Mark Wahlberg in the classroom teaching about bees, and then 2 minutes later, he's pulled into the gymnasium where the auditorium where the principal is telling everyone what's happening, and then we're on our way. We meet John Leguizamo outside, then we meet Zoe Deschanel's character, and we're already in the thick of it. There's been no character introductions. We're just thrust into this scenario with these people, and 20 minutes later, John Leguizamo's dead. And it's kind of supposed to be this like really, emotional thing. I think we're supposed to give a shit that he died. I don't, for a number of reasons, but the fact that we didn't really get any time spent with him is kind of a big deal. I think of other disaster movies of this ilk, like Independence Day, and yeah, I'm gonna fucking say it because I think it did it better than this movie, Godzilla '98. where they spend a solid 25 to 30 minutes getting you familiar with the characters. There's other alien shit or Godzilla shit happening every other scene, but you're getting to know these characters. That way, when they're put in peril, Jurassic Park is probably the best version of this. You give a shit. You know, we spend time with the people in their everyday lives and get to know them and get to know what they care about, what their concerns are in life. Alan Grant doesn't like kids. Boom. Now when he's thrust to be with kids, like he has to take care of them, and we as the audience go, "Oh, there we go. Pathos. There it is, you know?"
Mhm.
This movie doesn't do that even a little bit.
Mhm.
Like, even with the characters that we spend the entire runtime with, I don't know anything about them. They don't talk about their lives. They're on the brink of death this entire movie, supposedly. Um, and we never find out anything beyond what is surface level, that they have problems, that they're married, and that Elliot is a school teacher. He does science, apparently.
Yep, he does
And
science,
he's a douchebag. That's
and
his own words. So, um, yeah, I just there's just zero footwork done with these characters. That when the time for some of them to die happens, it's just so it falls so flat. I just did not give a shit. Probably the thing that upset me the most is John Leguizamo leaving his child to go like find his wife. I'm sorry, like your spouse is very important, but no.
right.
If you
What
think
would she tell you to do?
exactly. And also like if you think there's a chance that your spouse is dead, you do not go to try and find them and leave your kid to potentially become an orphan.
Hmm.
You just don't do that.
Hmm.
It's
Yep.
the dumbest thing ever. So when he does that in the movie, I'm like, okay, fuck you, dude. Fuck you. And then he has the gall to be like, yeah, don't take my daughter's hand unless you mean it. Don't give your daughter's hand away, you fuck.
Yeah, I mean that's so weird, dude. What a weird. God damn it! You're making me like the movie less. Like,
Yeah. That's good.
uh, it was so
Yeah.
bad. Don't
It's
take my dog's head unless
terrible.
you mean it, bro. You're pawning your fucking 8-year-old daughter off on us so that
Yeah.
you can go into a death zone and die. Like,
Yeah. And we're
I'm
you're
gonna do my best.
the
You
odds
know?
are like, yeah, like whatever your fucking bullshit statistics, yeah, your
Okay,
percentages.
wait. Can we stop on that for 1 second? Because
Yes,
that's
please.
important that we don't just gloss over that. He starts giving people statistical like analysis of things and like throwing out numbers based on nothing.
Yes.
He has no data.
Yes.
He has no model. He has no logical basis for determining these numbers. He's just fucking saying numbers. And I'm supposed to believe because he's a high school math teacher.
Yeah. That's the thing. I was like, when he's
I'm
like, yeah, it's like,
supposed to believe that he's so smart because he's a high school math teacher that he can just look at stuff and fucking use psychic powers to calculate
yeah,
probabilities and tell me, like, what the fuck?
yeah.
That's incredibly stupid.
It,
Ugh,
it's really bad.
it's bad.
It's really bad, man. It's really bad writing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's incredibly unfortunate. Um, hit me with another one that you got on your list, man, because I can
Okay.
go, I can do this all day.
I have one that has to piggyback on that. The scene where Mark Wahlberg is sitting there going, uh, just give me a second. I just need a second.
Just yeah,
He's like,
God,
okay. He's like, think about the problem, design the experiment. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like draw,
hate it.
draw your
Ugh.
conclusion, like collect the data and determine your conclusion or whatever. And he's saying that out loud while he's trying to figure out what to do as people are shooting themselves over a hill.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Like,
Yeah.
if a science teacher was standing there talking about, determine the question, design the experiment, collect the data, I'd be like, would you shut the fuck up? Like, there's an emergency happening and like we're trying to figure out what to do. Like, you're just over here babbling like a fucking moron about the scientific method. Like, yeah, we all took 5th grade science, bro. Like, sorry.
No, I mean, it's also like if you or I were in that situation, we'd like look at the person and be like, all right, cool. You don't know what to do. So why are we all looking to you?
Right. Like, everyone ignore that guy. What are we going to do?
I don't know why people are consistently looking to him for answers because he's not smart.
Well, but the movie tells us he is, Johnny.
Oh yeah.
The movie says he's smart, so that means the character is smart, regardless of what actually happens within the context of the story.
Yeah, well, that's fucking cinema betraying itself. You're not fucking showing shit right there.
Yeah. That's like writing the words "good movie" and putting it on a screen and being like, "See, I made a good movie."
I got a couple of things. I do agree with you that the mood ring scene with Wahlberg and the kid is kind of really the only time that he does manage to fall into that character. I don't like the mood ring as a MacGuffin thing at all. Like, again, just him wearing it. Every time I would see it, I was like, what are you doing? You're a grown ass man. And then he talks to the kids about it. He's like, it's got important meaning to me. Oh, because you wore it on a fucking date with your wife and that's it? Like, come on, man. The payoff with that shit is lame and I don't like it. The video quality on the cell phones is like as good as the video quality on our cell phones is now, and this is back in 2008 when they were still using flip phones. I was just like, whose video is this? Like, are you kidding me?
I had that exact thought. I'm like, nobody had a video like nobody had video that good on their phone ever in 2008. That wasn't even a thing.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
But props to you, Shyamalan, for seeing the future there, bud.
That's right.
I have several lines pulled. This was the first one that I had. It's when they're in the diner, right? And then the power goes out, and then one guy's like, "We need to get away from here. Otherwise, we're going to die here." That's kind of not the exact line, but it's something like that bad. And then another guy says, this is what they say going off of a map that they saw on the television with all the little dots where all the incidents are happening. There's no markers, there's no anything like that. The guy says, whatever this is looks like it's not occurring about 90 miles from here. What? What does that mean? 90 miles in which direction? How did you get that number? You're just like, whatever it looks like. If we get about 90 miles from here, south, north, west, doesn't matter. Just fuck off.
Well, okay.
And then everyone gets in their cars and leaves, like right from that moment. I'm like, what are you talking about, bro?
So he met west. He met west, like looking at the map, right? But like, someone tell me how often he looks at that exact map and he knows.
Yes, I'm like
mileage. You know what I mean?
90 miles specifically.
90 miles specifically in this direction. Like, okay, what is 90 miles in that direction? That you know that number?
Like, and there's not cities listed or anything like that on the thing. It's just
nothing.
Dots.
It's
just
like
dots. Looking at a fucking weather map and just being like, yeah, if we go 90 miles from here, we won't be in rain anymore, according to that picture.
The best part is all of those people in that diner, they got to that diner via train. They all took trains out of Philadelphia, and then everyone gets into cars and leaves. Yeah. Whose cars were those?
Yeah, I don't know.
What the fuck was happening?
Well, you can make the argument, that some of them were locals, but I'm like, dude,
Some of
there
them,
were hundreds of people
hundreds of
on
people on the
that
train.
train.
Yeah.
Where did they all go?
And
Same
the
thought.
reason the diner was packed and crowded was
Yes,
because many of the
all those
train
people were
people were
from the
there.
train. Yes.
Right. But they
Yeah.
all got into cars and left. Just
Yep.
ugh.
A lot of trunk space in those sedans.
That's right. That's right.
Um, Another one I had is like the phone call with the mom and daughter, when they're all like huddled around, and it's the mom, and she's like, oh, I got my daughter, she's in wherever it was,
Was it
in
Princeton or whatever?
Princeton or whatever, yeah. And
Because that he was
that
trying to figure out if John Leguizamo's character was okay.
yeah, and then she's like, oh honey, go, like, oh,
Go to the window by the tree and see if
but
you can get help.
yeah, even before that, she's like talking to her daughter, like her daughter's like stressed out and everything, and she's like, okay, just calm down, everything's gonna be okay, like you just gotta hide. And then um Mark Wahlberg walks over and is like, ask what's going on outside or whatever. Like, her daughter wouldn't have already told her. Like, what's the purpose of this phone call? Like, why is she so distressed? You wouldn't have asked why is she so distressed? And then she's like, oh, everyone outside's dead. Duh. Yeah.
We got that.
You don't need to tell us that.
That's what's
Again,
happening in the movie. Like we
Yes.
know what the movie's about.
And then yeah, it's like, go by the plant. No, don't go by the plant. Oh God. And then something happens and whatever, and then Mark Wahlberg takes the phone from the mom because she's gonna let that happen and not freak out over the fact that her daughter's probably dying on the other end, and he has it like up in the air like this, supposedly on speakerphone now. I don't know, because he's like, I hear the wind blowing in the back. I hear the wind blowing on the other, and you hear the wind. I'm like, damn. Either that is a massive gust of wind, or you have just the best reception. I don't know, but I'm like, what? The whole phone call is it's so bad. There's so many of these like stagnant scenes of people just standing around talking
Mm-hmm.
about what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this just keeps on going to, oh, we're we're telling, we're not showing, just consistently. And it's so bad because the writing and acting are not good enough. If you got like fucking, I, I don't know, uh Daniel Day-Lewis delivering fucking Aaron Sorkin dialogue, then yeah, you could probably get away with telling and not showing in
Well,
this stuff.
to be clear, in a certain type of story style, telling can be showing, right? So, like, if I'm trying to prove that my character is very clever and very intelligent, and I have a person argue him into a corner, and then I have my character argue their way out of that corner, right? That is showing, not telling through the
Yes.
dialogue. Like you can
Yeah.
show through the dialogue. But in this movie, it was just people standing around yapping with like nothing actually happening. And because like stuff like that can be like that can be interesting. Like a person on the phone hearing stuff happen on the other side of the phone. There's ways to do that are interesting.
Yes.
It just wasn't done here. Like you mentioned Aaron Sorkin, like man, he does great movies about people walking and talking, and it's fantastic. But this movie just wasn't. It wasn't engaging dialogue. The overall story itself wasn't engaging. The performances weren't engaging. The stuff that they had to deal with wasn't engaging. It was just like not.
I agree.
Yeah.
Uh Going back to kind of what we talked a little bit about camera work before in the good stuff, what I don't like in this is the Hitchcock extreme close-ups on Mark Wahlberg, where he's like this freaking out, and it's just like on him. Like, I'm like, dude, you are putting your worst asset dead center and just it's just glaring how bad everything is when you just fucking focus in on Wahlberg just not being able to come up, you know?
Yep.
They backfire so hard here. Where in a lot of his other movies, his Hitchcock close-ups actually very much work too.
I think they
Um,
usually do.
the benefit of the story, and here
Mhm.
it just hurts it really
Mhm.
bad.
Mhm.
I have another line here that Zoe Deschanel gives when all the people are being shot on the other side of the hill, and Mark Wahlberg's like, "Give me a second, give me a second," and she's freaking out. She says, uh, again, just I don't know who talks like this. We can't just stand here as uninvolved observers. Like, who talks like that in the heat of the moment? You guys are all just standing. What the fuck?
Nobody, nobody in
Yeah,
the world in an emergency. Nobody.
yeah, mm, yeah.
And
Um,
it's funny you say that. If I can jump in with a quick
yes,
with
please.
really my last thing I actually wrote down, and audience, you'll forgive me for not putting too much effort into writing down every single thing I didn't love about this movie. But also inexplicably nobody ever tries to stop anyone else. And that's the only time it's ever mentioned is that terrible line. But
Yeah,
nobody ever tries to stop anyone from actually doing it.
yeah,
So like we have like a scene where the soldier is spending like 2 minutes weirding out and drawing his gun and doing all of that.
yes,
And when they see him start weirding out, like I'm just being real right now. Like just like if this is real life and this is happening, the second I see that guy starting to weird out, I'm running over to him. I'm bear hugging him and holding his arms in place.
yeah,
And I'm going, Johnny, grab the gun.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, okay, now throw that away. Now help me pin him to the ground.
And see right there, you just wrote a scene that is infinitely more intense and interesting than anything we got in the back half of this movie.
Yep.
In the front half of this movie, for that matter.
Right. And
Because
that's
so much
just
of the
me
time
thinking
people are
out loud
just
about what I would actually do.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree completely. Um I mean that goes kind of to the last couple of things that I have here too. Like to piggyback on that, the kids getting shot in front of the doorway is just it's melodramatic as fuck. The you know Mark Wahlberg screaming out Jared in slow motion, the kid that he met probably like I don't know 15-20 minutes ago, whatever. Um,
Was that not one of his students?
I don't think so.
That was what I thought was the explanation for the melodrama.
No,
But
because he asks their names when they're like running one at the
Mhm.
time.
No, you're
Um,
right. So he just met them 10 minutes ago.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, don't get me wrong, to see kids get shot like that is absolutely horrific, but just the way it was done is just so melodramatic. And again, like he didn't, they don't do anything. These kids are
Right.
like, hey guys, stop that. We gotta go. Like, you're not. No one, dude. If I came up on a house like that, even today, and I was like, yo, we need X, Y, or Z, and people were like, no, get out of here. I'd be like, cool, let's not get shot.
If I
Let's
heard
go.
some redneck be like, "You better get off my porch,"
Yeah,
I'd get off the porch. And
exactly. Like
if the
as
fucking
this,
kid started kicking the door, I would grab him and pull him off of the porch.
yes,
Be like,
like
"You're not getting shot by a redneck."
and this is just you and me in like everyday life. Fuck,
Right.
this is an apocalyptic scenario that they're dealing
Right.
with here, and no one's like thinking this is cause for concern that these kids are antagonizing these people that are on the other side of the door that they cannot fucking see.
And
You're fucking adults.
and you're in a rural area where like
Yes.
these people have guns
Yeah.
and they clearly sound scared on the other side of the door.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't antagonize them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it
Um.
also that scene too, like even though it's not earned, maybe because it's not earned, it feels too dark to me. I'm like,
Yes.
why did we do that? Like, why
Yeah.
did I just have to watch two kids get blown away by this redneck? Like, it doesn't bring anything else. Like there's nothing else that it ties into in the rest of the story. I
Nope.
feel like it's just there to make me feel bad.
Yeah, exactly. I thought
Like,
the same thing too when I kind of saw the writing on the wall. Again, I didn't remember this from
I didn't
shit. I
either.
thought when they
Yeah,
were coming up on it, it was going to be the old lady's house.
right.
And
Same. Yes, yeah, because I haven't
um,
seen this movie in
yeah.
16, 17 years. Yeah.
So when I saw it start to play out, I was like, oh my God, they're going to kill these kids right now. I was like, that does not seem right. It like I was like, I guess it's a rated R movie, but I'm like, it doesn't seem to fit the narrative that we're telling because this movie has not gotten like sure all these people are killing themselves, but so much of it is not really shown. So, and it's certainly not shown with kids happening. Had that been tied in, that would have been very much more dramatic and added more depth and like made it more harrowing for the little girl's character to see that happen to a kid and to kind of process that. But we don't see that, and then these kids that just get blown away like out of nowhere. So I got two more things. One's another line of dialogue where Zoe Deschanel says about the old lady that's letting them stay at the house. She's uh, concerned about it, and she says there's something exorcisty about her. This is the word that she uses, exorcisty, and I don't know what that means. Um, like, is she implying that she strikes her as a religious official? Or is she referencing the movie, which honestly makes even less sense because I'm like, what is it? Is you saying that she is demonic? Do you think she's demonically possessed? Because again, you're using the wrong verbiage. I don't understand that line at all. It's a terrible line.
I think
Um,
that what she was trying to say was that she seems demonically possessed. And I agree with you that that is really bad.
yeah.
It's really bad.
And then my last thing is just the ending. The ending is so anticlimactic, falls so flat. I don't understand the science behind how wind and air works in this movie because Zoe Deschanel's character has the door open and the little thing that they are and the wind's blowing in there and it's been blowing for the last like I don't know 5 minutes that Mark Wahlberg was trying to hide in the house. I just it's so weak. It's weak. It's really really bad. Do you have any thoughts on that beyond what I have to say or what? Just that, huh?
No, I'm sorry. I can only say so much about this movie, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you, buddy. I'm kind of spent, so
Yeah. I know also like I just like at a certain point, like I just feel like I'm kicking a guy who's down and I just keep kicking him. And I was like, he's got the point.
um buddy, he M's doing just fine. You
No,
know,
no, I
he's
know. I mean like just if the movie is the guy we're talking about.
oh, oh yeah.
We already whooped this guy's ass like 8 times in a row. And he's lying
Yeah.
on the ground and we don't need to hit him anymore, you know?
Hear me out. What if the guy was a pedophile though, right? We keep on
All right.
kicking. Right?
Keep kicking him. Somehow I don't think this movie is quite that bad. But
That's fair. I'm just
we
I haven't watched a movie
mhm,
that upset me this much in a
mhm.
long time. So
I haven't watched a movie that sucked this bad in a long time. And I don't like using that kind of language. And I don't really like demeaning filmmakers, actors, writers, people working so hard,
yeah.
producers,
No,
all the
I
crews.
agree.
Everyone works so hard to make a movie.
But
But this movie
you and
sucked.
I are also have a history of being very, very understanding and lenient in these regards. So I
Right.
feel like if we both feel this strongly about this,
Mhm.
then some stuff is awry, you know?
It's a bad movie.
Yeah.
I think it's a weirdly bad movie because it's from a very talented filmmaker who, despite his ups and downs, doesn't usually make bad movies.
Yeah. At least
Yeah.
not like this. At least not in the stuff that we're covering, pal.
Right.
Well, without any further ado, I'm just spent, so we are going to head on over to our next section that really suits the whole vibe of this episode. Truly terrifying tidbits. All right, buddy. In truly terrifying tidbits, we discuss the horror of it all. And would you consider The Happening a horror movie?
Sure.
It's trying to be.
It's sure trying. It's doing its best.
Uh, and if you were gonna nail down the scariest scene that the film had to offer, what would it be?
Mark Wahlberg talking about the scientific method after saying, "Give me a second."
I fucking knew. Dude, I almost did. I was like, anything where Mark Wahlberg is doing the acting.
I mean, if I'm being completely sincere, the opening with the people jumping off the skyscraper, pretty scary. And then I thought the moment where the old lady gets possessed was a little bit scary.
Yeah. That is my pick of it all too. The construction scene for sure.
Yeah, that was a pretty good scene.
All right. Go ahead and give me that rewatch. Here in the rewatch, we discuss the film's rewatchability, some of our favorite moments from the flick, and its overall entertainment value. So Kalen, if you were gonna really try and piss somebody off and you wanted to get them hooked to watch the entirety of The Happening, and you had to show them one scene from YouTube to get them hooked, what would their YouTube scene be?
Am I trying to get them to watch it because I hate them?
Yeah, probably.
Then I'm gonna go with the mood ring scene with the little girl because then they might be tricked into thinking it's a good movie.
I see that. I'm gonna go with what originally sold me in the trailer. Because I think I said this at the start of this episode, fucking 6 hours ago. That I thought it had a fairly intriguing trailer. I do like, I did like the scene where Mark Wahlberg was questioning the train engineers in regards to what was going on, and they're like, we lost contact, and he's like, with whom?
With who?
They're like, everybody. I think that's a good, there's enough intrigue in that scene if you don't know anything about what's going on to kind of reel you in.
Yeah.
Just sidestepping the YouTube scene, we're gonna go over to our favorite scene. Do you have one?
Yeah, I mean the construction scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was definitely like the highlight for me. If not just being completely perplexed. I gotta say that the scene where everyone's getting shot on the other side of the hill and Mark Wahlberg is freaking out, like, is incredibly entertaining, if for all the wrong reasons.
No, I mean I would agree. And like, if I were the kind of person who hate watched movies,
Yes.
I don't hate watch movies, but if I were, then yeah, be something you can make fun of. If it was something where we were getting drunk and hanging out with each other and having fun
Yeah.
and making fun
Yeah.
of the movie, then yeah, I'd probably like that scene for that reason.
Yes, exactly. And Shyamalan doesn't have a proper cameo in this, but he is supposedly the voice of Joey on the other end of the phone. So on a scale of 1 to 10 for Shyamalan cameo, what do you give this one?
Irrelevant.
That I agree with, sir. All right. And we come to the coup de grace of this section, as it were. The rewatch value. So here's your scale now, buddy. New and improved. Here we go. So from insanely rewatchable to yearly rewatch to a good time at the movies, take it or leave it, or one and done. What do you rate this movie?
One and done.
Two and done, unfortunately. But yeah.
I was gonna say I never planned on watching this movie again after watching it the first time, and I never would have watched it again if you hadn't have asked me to for this podcast. And I don't ever plan on watching it again.
Yeah, I will.
Too many good movies out there.
I just like putting this off for as long. Every time I thought about it, I was like, dude, I do not want to watch this movie, but we have to do this podcast. And I'm angry about it. And I'm angry that I had to pay $3.59 to watch it. God damn it!
Can I tell you that stung, bro?
Yeah,
that stung. Like,
yeah,
because I also found it on Max and was like, okay, cool. At least I don't have to pay for it. And then I couldn't find it when I watched it yesterday.
Yeah.
And I went over and I was looking and I was like, oh, I have to rent this. And I was like, dude, I have to spend money on this fucking movie.
Yeah. Dude,
terrible.
I was very much like, I went to YouTube. I was like, maybe I can download it illegally. I was like, I do not want to do this. And I was like, oh God. I mean, I spend money on some stupid shit, but I agree.
Same.
This is like, I was like just fucking gritting my teeth about it. Oh boy. Well, yeah.
Somebody at Fox, somebody who works for 20th Century Studios, saw that two people rented that movie in a 2-day period and was like, someone needs to check on those guys. I don't know if they're okay. It's 25 and these guys are renting The Happening.
You know, the worst part would be if they found out we did it unironically. You're telling me that they're watching it to talk about it?
And they're gonna analyze this movie?
Give a history lesson? Jesus Christ Almighty! On to the Johnny horror score. All right. So here at the Johnny Horror Score, we are going to cover the response to the film, give our final thoughts and rankings, and try not to succumb to the chemical that makes us kill ourselves in the process.
That's right.
Okay. So, release. The marketing campaign for The Happening was noted for its aggressive tactics and great visuals that successfully intrigued audiences. According to Deadline Hollywood, the film was negatively targeted by several media outlets that began rooting for the film's failure, including USA Today, while also branding Shyamalan as the hopelessly arrogant has-been. That is fucking uncalled for.
Mean-spirited.
In its opening weekend, the film grossed $30.5 million, including $13 million on its first day and $10.2 on its second, exceeding expectations and placing third at the box office. Outside the United States and Canada, the film made $32.1 million across 88 international markets in its first 3 days. As of August 2020, the DVD units sold have generated over $22.4 million in revenue. That's something.
That's a lot of coasters out there, bro.
That's what I'm That is the poll quote for the episode right there, pal. Oh man. Okay. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has a rating of 18% out of 186 critics reviews. With an average rating of 4 out of 10. The website's critical consensus reads, "The Happening begins with promise, but unfortunately descends into incoherent and unconvincing trifle." Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 34 out of 100 based on 38 critics, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. Audiences polled Cinema Score gave the film a D on an A plus to F scale. Some critics enjoyed it. Glenn Whipp said, "Tamping down the self-seriousness in favor of some horrific silliness, M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening plays as a genuinely enjoyable B movie for anyone inclined or able to see it that way." Here we go. Kirk Honeycutt of The Hollywood Reporter said the film lacked cinematic intrigue and nail-biting tension, and that the central menace does not pan out as any kind of Friday night entertainment. Variety's Justin Chang felt it covers territory already overtilled by countless disaster epics and zombie movies, offering little in the way of suspense, visceral kicks, or narrative vitality to warrant the retread. Mick LaSalle wrote in his San Francisco Chronicle review that he considered the film entertaining but not scary. He commented too on Shyamalan's writing, opinioning that instead of letting his idea breathe and develop and see where it might go, he jumps all over it and prematurely shapes it into a story. James Bernadelli said that the film neither had a sense of atmosphere nor strong character development. He called the environmental message way too obvious and strident, gave it 1.5 stars out of a possible 4, and concluded his review by saying, "The Happening is a movie to walk out of, sleep through, or best of all, not bother with." Times Richard Corliss saw the film as dispiriting indignation that writer-director M. Night Shyamalan has lost the touch. Chicago Tribune's Michael Phillips thought the film had a workable premise, but found the characters to be gas bags or forgetful. What's a gas bag? I don't like that. I want to start using that.
We'll bring that one back.
Joe Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal said that the film was a woeful clunker of a paranoid thriller and highlighted the befuddling infelicities. Infelicities? I don't know that word. Inconsistent banalities, shambling pace, and pervasive ineptitude. Stephen King liked the film, stating of Fox's 2 summer creep shows, the other being X-Files, I Want to Believe, I give the edge to The Happening, partly because M. Night Shyamalan really understands fear, partly because this time he's completely let himself go, hence the R rating, and partly because after Lady in the Water, he had something to prove. Critic Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times awarding the movie 3 stars. This is when he was getting later in life. He was losing it, I think. Found it odd.
He's got some great reviews from later in life, though. I'm serious.
I know he was still on his game. I'm just trying to figure this one out, bro.
You know what? He smoked some good weed that day. That's all that it is.
Apparently, yeah. This movie would be a lot more fun on weed. Found it oddly touching. It is no doubt too thoughtful for summer action season, but I appreciate the quietly realistic way Shyamalan finds a way to tell a story about the possible death of a man. Lot more reviews that I do not want to go through because I will just be retreading the same ground. But we will read the response from the cast and crew. On June 7th, 2008, days before the first few reviews for the film came online, Shyamalan told the New York Daily News, "We're making an excellent B movie That's our goal. Wahlberg offered his own opinion of The Happening in 2010, saying that Amy Adams, who was considered for the role of Alma Moore, had dodged a bullet by not starring in the film. He said it was a really bad movie. Fuck it. It is what it is. You can't blame me for not wanting to try to play science teacher. At least I wasn't playing a cop or a crook. About Wahlberg's reaction, Shyamalan said he is fine with his opinion, since that would be the only case of that happening. No, but really no. It's totally his call, however he wants to interpret it. Thoughts, comments, concerns?
Did Mark Wahlberg just say he didn't try?
He said, "You can't blame me for not wanting to play a science teacher. At least I wasn't playing a cop or a crook."
Not wanting. Why did you take the role?
I don't know.
Nobody forced you to agree to be in the film.
Money, baby.
He has money. He had money.
More money, baby.
All right. I mean, I don't understand it. That to me almost feels like him saying like, yeah, I fucked that movie up, but who cares? And like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't feel like that's a great response on his end.
I agree. But, he's Marky Mark. He doesn't really ever seem to give a fuck,
I do.
In 2019, Shyamalan said that he took some responsibility for the way the movie turned out. I think it's a consistent kind of farce humor, like The Blob, the campy 1958 debut of actor Steve McQueen featuring a mysterious growing amoeba that takes over a small Pennsylvania town. The key to The Blob is that it never takes itself too seriously. I think I was inconsistent. That's why they couldn't see it. In 2022, Deschanel also defended the movie. The director M. Night Shyamalan had a strong vision, and we were all trying to do what he wanted. I trusted him because he's a great filmmaker. I didn't know until I saw the film, but I think he was going for a stylized horror, like The Birds, and maybe people didn't get that.
See, that's how you answer if you're a professional.
Yes, exactly. All right, so I'm going to read one last thing here about how people have been kind of reevaluating it as a B movie in the years since. There's a couple of different paragraphs here that you can find on Wikipedia in regards to this, guys, but I'm just going to read the last one here from Bloody Disgusting, because that is the real deal where you get your horror news on the internet, folks. In 2020, Lindsay Traves of Bloody Disgusting said that it was a deadpan comedy in disguise featuring numerous trope parodies, and summarized that The Happening gave us a film that wasn't about any real killer, but hinted it might be about nationalism, post 9/11 fears, and American paranoia, then dared us to ask if we should take it seriously. The same year, Scott Mendelson of Forbes summarized that The Happening is unique unto itself, is rarely boring, and has aged well in terms of being a bonkers original premise delivered with a relatively straight face and just a hint of knowing camp. At its core, the Mark Wahlberg, Zoe Deschanel sci-fi chiller is essentially, what if one of our more genuinely talented directors made a big budget R-rated Ed Wood movie? Shyamalan is nothing if not sincere, and while he's attempting a modern day version of a 1950s sci-fi warning movie, the film is absolutely invested in its mother nature, is tired of humanity's bullshit premise. Sorry, folks. There's a lot to read about that. And there's plenty of stuff we didn't even read. Any thoughts on any of that? Any thoughts of it being reassessed as a proper B movie? Do you think that's what he was intending, or?
I mean, like to some degree, like, I had a coworker recently, a younger coworker, who said to me that she watched Trap and it made her laugh. But she was like, but I laughed at the parts you weren't supposed to laugh at. Like, I'm just laughing at it, And I'm like, You think that the movie didn't know that it was making you laugh during some of those silly segments? Because these kids don't all have the context to have media literacy, right? So
Yeah.
they don't understand farcical humor. They
Yeah.
don't understand cheese for the sake of cheese. They don't get that stuff because that hasn't been prevalent in the last 15 years of movies and television, right?
Yeah.
So sure, I mean there's a little bit of that. I don't think you can sorry, my dog is very happy to see me and she may
Yeah.
crawl into the shot.
Hey.
Yeah, Mocha says hi. I think that you can certainly point to some of that, and maybe you can make the movie a little bit funnier in that way. But I mean, I don't think there's any way to pretend like it's actually good. Maybe he was thinking more farcical comedy and all that than whatever, but it doesn't. It on any level, it doesn't work that well, in my opinion. It just doesn't. Also, I just want to point out too, like I don't even hate like the messaging in the movie. I think environmental messaging is fine. I think America was in like a weirdly nationalist place in the 2000s that was like a
Yes.
little bit concerning, you know. I don't have any problem with that kind of commentary, but like you have to do it well in a story that works. Like
Yeah.
you can't just be like, here's a message. Listen to my messaging. You can't just like get on a soapbox and tell people how you feel about stuff. That's not
Yeah.
storytelling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And since you're already kind of in the thick of it, why don't you round it out with whatever final thoughts you have and give us your ranking?
Final thoughts. I have not watched Shyamalan's unoriginals. I've not watched After Earth, and I've not watched Avatar, and I don't really intend to unless you ask me to. Those aren't movies I need to watch.
Yeah.
I don't think any of Shyamalan's originals are actually bad, except for this movie.
Yeah.
This is the one bad one. Some of them aren't as good as others, and I'm perfectly comfortable saying that. And some of them are much closer to average, and some of them are much closer to greatness. But this is the bad movie he made.
Yeah.
And I guess I would give it like when I do my 1 out of 10, I try to keep in mind like what would happen if you just went on Tubi and you just clicked over randomly 7 times and then clicked on a movie.
Yes.
There are some really bad movies out there. So that considered, I'd probably give this like a 3.
Yeah.
3 out of
That's
10.
fair.
Yep.
I'm such in the same place as you. Like, we will not be covering any M. Night Shyamalan movies that are not his original. After Earth, Avatar, and that does include A Knock at the Cabin because that is not that is based off of a book by another author. So we are only going to be sticking to his originals on this podcast. And yeah, I like I said, I did not want to watch this movie. I had no desire to go back to it, but for the sake of, you know, doing what we're doing here, we both
Right.
had to bite the bullet.
Being thorough.
And we've really spent the last year really praising everything that he's done. So, um, it is interesting to kind of sit back and just go, what exactly happened? And I think really what it does kind of boil down to is what I was talking about before, where the marriage of the 1950s B movie with his very, a lot of the times, very serious sort of dialogue that is very unique to Shyamalan, the way he writes and the way his characters speak. I
Mhm.
do not think that marriage works very well.
Mhm.
And then to have actors that are A, not on the same page, B, didn't want to be there, and C, could not rise above the material just hurts everything across the board. Um, so yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 10 because stuff on Tubi at the very least is, made by people that are not afforded the opportunities that are present to the people who made this movie. So, yeah, I hope to God I never have to watch it again. So
right.
that is a 2.5 out of 10 for the Johnny Horror Podcast for The Happening. One final question for you, sir, before we wrap this shit show up. If you were going to double feature The Happening at the Johnny Horror Drive-In and just piss off everybody, what film would you double feature it with?
Poltergeist. Just kidding.
I was gonna throw the fucking phone.
I'm thinking bad movie by a good director, so I'm gonna say Showgirls.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, at least that would get you in the right sort of zone of just over the top bad acting.
I'm putting that one second though, because I
Oh,
actually
for
like
sure.
that movie more
For
than this
sure.
one. So you might win some of your friends back showing them that one. Yeah.
At least there's a lot more boobs in that one too, so that's a thing.
There's that.
But yeah, that one I feel like is much more aware of.
It is.
Paul Verhoeven is a very smart guy.
I know.
And,
believe me, you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, so that's good. I'm gonna stick with the kind of end of the world sort of scenario. What I mentioned before, H.G. Wells. I think this would actually pair pretty well with another movie of the same ilk, Spielberg's War of the Worlds. Obviously, you show that one afterwards because
Afterwards,
you
that's the second movie. Yeah,
want to watch the taste out of your mouth.
Much better movie.
I feel it is very much kind of in the same vein, just done so much better. Also has an anticlimactic ending, but one that makes sense and works.
Right.
So,
It's also, I want to point out, not to be like to push my glasses up, but that's how War of the Worlds ends. Like H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds.
I know.
So
I remember people
Spielberg for following the ending.
I remember people being pissed off about that. I'm like, that's the way it ends in the book, yo.
That's the book. Yeah, that's the story.
And it makes so much sense. Again, this will just go back to like what we talked about in Signs. I'm like, why in the world do you think that a species could come to our planet and just survive? Like that's
and
not
just
the
know
way
everything
it works,
automatically.
bro.
Right.
Yeah. The common cold killed so many people back in the day. Of course,
well,
it would kill.
It would go both ways too, right? Like if you were to actually go to a planet that was biologically active in the way that the Earth is, and you were to just step out of your spacesuit, because they do this all the time in sci-fi movies. The air is breathable, and then they take off their helmets. You don't know what kind of pathogens are in the like.
Shit pissed me off
an alien
fucking
like
Prometheus,
that.
Dude.
Right.
Like when they do that, like
that's actually exactly what I had in my mind.
Jackass.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh God! All right, that's a fucking rant to go on another podcast.
It is.
Kalen, as always, thank you for partaking. I know this was a tough ask. So hopefully the next one won't be so bad because we're getting out of the dirt and we're gonna go jump in the water.
That's right.
Lady in the Water coming up next. That's one I have not seen, so
this is gonna be an interesting show, y'all.
There I think we have 3 left. We have Lady in the Water, we have Old, and then we're gonna end it with the OG.
The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Oh.
So hopefully he doesn't like do anything crazy and put out another movie between now and then. You never know with that guy.
I know. You know.
But until then, we're gonna keep on having discussions about movies, and we hope that you all look forward to listening to us have them. Have a great night, and adios, muchachos.
Peace.